Welcome to Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, the podcast that deals with all things mental health. We talk to professionals, survivors, and loved ones about their sometimes informative, sometimes uplifting, and sometimes tragic stories. I'm your host of the show, Todd Rennebaum, advocate, recovering addict, experienced sufferer of depression and anxiety, and author of the children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. I am Todd Rennebaum. Thank you for listening, tuning in this week, and thank you to everyone that's been tuning in. And thank you for all the comments and questions and concerns and everything that I get every week. I'd like to read a little thing here from a listener named Jacqueline. She writes in quite often, but I'm going to read another one of hers. What an excellent podcast that you pushed out with Randall and Jennifer. Wow. This will be a fantastic film, and it was so cool to hear big celebrities behind the film. I have to share some feedback that you were so polished with your questions, timely with your responses, and insightful with your answers to their comments. A lot of growth, Mr. Todd. Well, thank you, Jacqueline. It's amazing what editing will do. Jacqueline was writing about the episode number 64. It was a couple weeks back about Jennifer and Randall, who have a documentary called Spiral coming out. I highly suggest you listen to that episode. It's a very interesting movie and two very interesting people. A little news here in Canada. A new bill was passed, Bill C7, and I talked to Dr. Sonu Gond about that in episode 49. And what that bill is about, it's medical assistance in dying when it comes to mental health and mental illnesses. So people with mental health and mental illness issues can actually get assisted suicide in hospitals now in Canada. On that episode, when I released it, I had a question sent out to people on Spotify. There was I don't know how it works, but anyway, the question is, what is your opinion on MAID when it comes to mental health? I kind of forgot about that, and I never really looked into it, but here's a response from C. Taylor 74. I believe it should be an option for everyone. If you have decided to end your life, I think doing it with dignity and with someone there with the person is a better option than doing it by yourself. Thank you so much, C. Taylor, for that. And if you want to respond to that or to that question, please listen to episode 49 on Spotify. And before I talk about this week's guest, I'll quickly talk about next week's guest. Her name is Louise Barnett, and she has a brand new podcast. Actually, when I talked to her, she didn't even have it yet. It's called Together Sober Podcast, and she is a sober coach, and I believe a life coach as well. But I talked to her about her past addictions and what that looked like, and her story, and how she turned her life around to actually help others in sobriety and in recovery. That's next week, Louise Barnett, and it's going to be another good one. Now, this week, I am speaking with Hailey Rose. I actually spoke to her way back in episode 32, and we've become good friends over Instagram, so she's a really great mental health advocate. Hailey, over the last little while here, she has had some mental health issues again, and so I kind of wanted to talk to her while she was in a bit of a low. She's bipolar with schizoaffective disorder. She has complicated PTSD and ADHD. So in this episode, we talk a little bit about the bipolar part, some about ADHD, and a lot about dogs. She's thinking about getting a dog or an emotional support animal. As always, she's very humorous. Not as much so as last time because she's a bit of a funk in this one, but she's humorous, she's smart, she's chatty, and she's just very charming and lovely. So I always love talking to her. So without further ado, I give you Hailey.
Yeah, and a lot of anxiety for people with ADHD is due to their ADHD, just like a lot of depression for people with ADHD is due to their ADHD, because it's very easy to be overwhelmed. It's very easy to forget things, lose things, and you get anxious. Even when you're trying to talk to someone and you're worried about how you're coming across socially, or you forget what you're going to say, or what, like, I was reading this post about it the other day, and it's very true. It's like There are just micro moments of shame all the time when you have ADHD.
You just posted a meme about that or something.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and I mean, even more so, it's like every time that you lose something, every time you disappoint someone because you're not there on time, or because you didn't do what you're supposed to do, or you have to sit and kind of laugh and apologize, or you step over a pile of laundry you can't bring yourself to fold away, and you feel there's a lot of times where moments due to that make you feel like a failure. You know what I mean? And it's just not fun. I think that's a really big difference between autism and ADHD. Autistic people are perfectly happy most of the time being autistic, and they just figure the only problem is that they're in a world that doesn't allow that. Whereas I think a lot of people with, like, they would never want to get rid of their autism because it's a part of who they are and blah blah. Whereas I think a lot of people with ADHD, you say, do you want to get rid of it? They'd be like, yeah. And it's like, it's something that they hate, because it's not, it's not, it just doesn't work, in the world we live in. And even if we didn't live in that world, there would still be, because it's, personal stuff. Like, I lost this, I can't find that. I've got things I need to do and I can't do them, I think we come with a lot more of, I would get rid of that if I could.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I there's some days where I'm like, oh man, I love the way I am because I'm creative and I'm artistic and I'm a little outside the box and stuff. But then other times, like you said, these micro guilt trips or micro shame. Yeah. I just walk around the house and go, oh man, I was supposed to paint that, or I was supposed to do this, and I haven't got the energy to do the flooring, or, it's like, for me, it's a lot of
time. You're like, shit, like, you ran out of time again, and just like,
yeah. And it's not like, oh, well, it's always like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Like, I'm always hard
because
on
it
myself.
happens all the time and you just feel like an idiot. Like, I couldn't tell when I was a kid whether I was smart or not. Like, I'm like, am I smart or am I an idiot? And like, a lot of me thought I was an idiot because I couldn't do these basic things. Where it turns out, I'm not an idiot. Like, I just have that issue. And that doesn't mean you're stupid, but it seems that way a lot of the time. Like, you're just you failed being a human being a lot of the time, when that's not the case. You just have, an issue you got to deal with,
Yeah.
And, I do like, because of my ADHD, if there's an emergency or if there's something, that requires, bravery and stuff like that, like, I am zeroed in on that. I will go check to see if something's on fire. I will get everyone out of the room. I go into this just like I'm calm and I can do this. And I think that's because of the ADHD. Like, California is famous for its earthquakes, and when I lived there, I worked at Universal Studios, and there's a ride that I helped operate that has an underground level for the line, and there was an earthquake that started to happen, and we were underground. And I'm like, that's not the place to be when you have an earthquake. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to panic everyone by being like, earthquake, you know what I mean? I was just like, everyone, we need to evacuate immediately. I need everyone to the ceiling. No. And I got everybody out, and everybody was calm, and it was great. And I didn't think, I was not like, you know what I mean? And I think that's one thing ADHD helps you do. Like, firefighters, it's good for them, and EMTs, it's good for them, and, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. I can relate to that too. I've been in situations like that. And then, a day later, I'm a nervous wreck, but
you have a meltdown.
yeah. Or I'm a nervous wreck because of the situation I was in. But at the time I was okay. But then later it's like, oh shit. Like,
it kind of catches up with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm lucky that went that well,
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed I read an article a little while ago about good professions for people with ADHD, and EMT was one of them.
You notice a lot of them require high energy, high bravery, high focus, and novelty. If you're an EMT or even a firefighter, like, you have to do the same activities, but there is not going to be one situation that matches another. It keeps you stimulated, and I think that's, it's a job that behaves like Adderall, basically,
Yeah.
Which is good.
Speaking of which, I've had about 4 cups of coffee today.
Ooh.
Is Adderall
Stimulant?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amphetamine.
Oh,
okay. All the stimulant ones are some derivative of an amphetamine. And so you have to take them seriously. But are you on anything right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, not for ADHD. I'm still waiting for my assessment. I called in March for it, and I still haven't got the call. So,
Crazy,
It's
man.
now middle to late September.
September.
Yeah.
It's
So,
been 6 months.
yeah.
That's good.
But because the assessment is it's going to be paid for through my provincial government, I applied and got it. So
Okay.
because I don't have to pay, the line is even longer. So if I had the money, which is around $2,000, I probably would have had it a lot sooner. But
That's so much money for that assessment. And see, that's the weird thing. It's like, there's a lot of things wrong with private insurance healthcare. But the one thing is I pay, a fee monthly, and I went and got an assessment basically within days of requesting one. And it cost like, I don't know, a $20 copay, and that was it. And so, you get in quicker. But it's one of those things where it's like you get what you pay for, and so if you want something that doesn't cost as much, that's fine, but you may be limited in choice and it may take longer. And so that's kind of the trade-off, you know what I mean, for big specialized things like that. I know for, if you go in because you've got a flu or something, they'll see you and you get your medicine, you get out of there. But for specialist kind of things, and it could take long. And by the way, there is public healthcare here as well. A lot of people don't know that. For example, I was on public health insurance because I couldn't afford regular insurance. I fell below that income line, and it was all right. It wasn't great, but it was all right. And I got my psychiatric stuff, and the VA, the Veterans Association. If you're a veteran, you get free health care from the Veterans Association, but they'll still make you wait for like important stuff. My stepfather is a vet, and he had a strange skin lesion that they thought might be cancer. And it took them like 2 or 3 months to get him in for like a verification of it. And it's like, if you have cancer, you don't have 2 or 3 months. You know what I mean? You gotta look at that quickly, And so I was like, well, that's, kind of shitty service, but they do well in other things. So
yeah, I guess it's better than no health care.
yeah, it's better than not having anything at all. And, for people that can't afford regular healthcare or who have done things where they should be getting healthcare, like, serving the country or whatever, like that's,
You've been posting lately that you haven't been yourself. You haven't been your best you.
Yeah, when my page started taking a huge hit, it really brought me down because that was my main focus. That was what I poured my heart into. That was what gave me a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose. And so when it took a hit and I started becoming invisible to most people, it really upset me a lot, and I posted about it a few times, but that's nowhere near the amount that it really did upset me, because I was trying to do this good thing and I'd been working my butt off on it for over a year. And again, when you have ADHD and you have some kind of hyperfixation, if it's just a hyperfixation, you usually get over it after a couple of weeks or a couple of months or something. This was something I was dedicated to and would still have been equally dedicated to had this not happened,
Mm-hmm. So
but
just to explain a bit what you're talking about, you have an Instagram account if talking about mental health, especially bipolar and stuff. You had very comical reels, and not just comical, but like information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was spread information about that kind of thing.
And then you found out that there's some certain words that Instagram doesn't like, and you kind
Certain
of
topics, yeah.
and you made a reel about Instagram, and then you got shadow banned, and you.
And I'm not sure if it was directly related, but it is a very strange coincidence.
Well, the first time I interviewed you, I think you had around 3,000 followers, and then within a few months, you shot up to around 18,000, and then now it's like dead still.
19.1. I got to 19.1, and then it faded down. And it's like, the thing is, you always lose followers, people who are like, oh, you didn't do follow for follow, or, oh, I don't really want to look at this or whatever. But, the idea is you gain more followers than you lose. So it's okay. And I would always do that. I'd gain this many and I'd lose like this many, but I stopped gaining almost any at all, like period. And I would lose the same amount. And so I've lost like 300 and something. people, maybe more at this point, and I'm not getting shown anywhere and all of that. And so it's like, it really brought me down, and it took away my sense of purpose. And so my depression was partially, I think, because of a mood disorder, because I'd be predisposed to that, but then also quite situational. Like I didn't have anything else, and all my friends were there, and I felt like I was making a difference, and people benefited from it and everything. And it just kind of got taken away, and I'm still plugging away, because maybe it'll come back, but like just the really gung-ho spirit for it has just gone away. And on top of that, once a depression gets triggered, when you have a mood disorder like bipolar disorder, it lasts, and it goes through a whole cycle, and it lasts and until you get out of it. So it's like, even if I was just like regularly kind of bummed out, like if I didn't have a mood disorder, I would probably just try to get through it. But if the depression was triggered, which it was, it would just sink lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, until I got to the point where it's like, for the past like few weeks, I've been dipping in and out of suicidality, and everything short of making an actual plan, because I can't leave my husband or my mom. You know what I mean? Like, it would be passing the pain on to them, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it's like in every other way, I felt that way. I couldn't get out of bed. Sometimes I still have trouble with that. I was always exhausted. I didn't want to eat at all. Didn't want to eat anything. I didn't sleep very much. And I think it's starting to get a little bit better. I think mostly because I've been around, this fabulous dog that I've been able, and, dogs are amazing, and he's been coming and checking on me all the time. And, I've been playing with him and everything. And that has helped, I think a lot.
Well, you also lost your family dog too, which was situational as well.
Yeah, that did not help. That was really terrible. Like when I was already sinking, we lost our little dog, Wally, who was, I think, 13 at the time. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he was kind of acting funny, and we took him to the vet, and they're like, oh yeah, he has lung cancer, like stage 3 or 4 lung cancer. We're like, what? Like, he wasn't acting like, he couldn't breathe or whatever. Like, sometimes he'd seem out of breath, like when he was walking, but we just figured it was because he was old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just seemed like to have these issues because he's old, but then it's like, we took him, and it was like, it was so out of the blue. And they're like, he probably has a few days, maybe a week or 2. And we're just like, what? And I thought he was going to be put down like the next day. And he lasted for like a couple of weeks, but then, he couldn't breathe very well, at that point. And we're like, I was like, Mom, you can't let him be like this. And so she didn't. And that was that. And, he went peacefully, but it was time for him to go, and that was really hard. Because we'd had him for like 10 years. I was the one that brought him home, and that didn't, like I said, that didn't help at all.
I hope I'm not bumming you out.
Hmm?
Hope I'm not bumming you out or
you're not.
you.
It's something. No, you're not. It's something worth talking about. You know what I mean? And so it's like, we've got this gigantic and very happy dog, who's kind of, keeping everybody's spirits up and everything. And, he's a good boy. He's very smart. He's a puppy though. So he's kind of like a little dickhead, because he's doing puppy things, like stealing people's socks and, jumping up on people. But when he jumps up on you, he's like 5 feet tall when he jumps on you. So he comes up to like here, and then he's got this giant crocodile mouth. He's like, and he doesn't realize that he's as big and strong as he is. Like, if he wants to jump off the deck, he can step off the deck. It's only like a 4-inch drop, but he doesn't realize that. So he has to like jump off the deck thinking he won't make it. And you're like, dude, you're huge,
Sounds like my parents' dog. Is it a golden doodle?
Yes, that's what Dudley is. He's
okay.
a golden doodle. He's huge.
Yeah, that's my parents have too.
Big old paws and everything, and he's shaggy. He's like a shag rug, and he's very sweet, very smart, but he is a puppy,
Yeah. My parents' dog, just got out of that. He's a little over a year old now, that stage. And he's so cute. And so it's like having a horse in the
I was going to
house.
say they're like horses. Yeah.
Mixed with like a Jim Henson Muppet.
Yes, that's what I said too. He looks like a Jim Henson Muppet, like, because he just looks, the way he moves and everything, so silly. And when he sleeps, he looks like this. He looks like the luck dragon from the Never-Ending Story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This big kind of like thing, like laying out. But he's a very good boy. They're very smart. They're very sweet. They don't make great guard dogs because they would want to make friends with everyone. He barks when someone's at the door, so but that's about it. If you open the door, he'll love you. It doesn't matter. So.
I like to talk about Instagram again, because I don't think a lot of people realize, like, what are some of the topics and some of the hashtags and stuff that if you use, they won't promote it. Like, it's like they don't like people talking about mental health on Instagram.
No, they do not. And they made it very clear. There's certain circumstances that they decide are okay. Like if you're speaking about mental health in a lighthearted manner and, you're not talking about too many dark things or whatever, you're not encouraging self-harm, which I'm okay with that. I don't want people putting like pro anorexia stuff or, like you should harm yourself or whatever, especially because there's very young people on there. Mm-hmm. But the problem is they have these terms mislabeled. For one thing, like for a long time, bipolar disorder was labeled as an eating disorder. Schizoaffective and BPD were labeled as self-harm, which they were not. And you could not use the word suicide anywhere, like not on the screen. You can censor me out if you want, just so you don't get a low view count because I've said this word. You know what I mean? But yeah, especially in the hashtags. No, like that's not even suicide awareness or recovery or whatever. They do not want it. And they say it very specifically if you're talking about physical or mental disabilities. They are not going to make you visible. You're not going to be kicked off the platform unless you do it in ways that they think are harmful. But like, who's making that decision? An algorithm? Like that's
Yeah, because
and they don't. They hide you. I was literally hidden from sound pages and hashtag things, and they change the rules all the time. Like before, you could use a bunch of hashtags. Now they're like, no, only 2 or 3, or like they were like, oh yeah, you're going to get more views with reels, and now they're like, oh no, we'd like a diversity of posts and stuff. And it's just so hard to keep up with in general, especially if you're trying to talk about these kinds of topics. You know what I mean? Like it's just really unfair.
And it all started with them approaching you saying, you're getting a lot of content. We want you to be a content creator and we want to monetize your content. So then you were all excited, but then you found out. So there was some algorithm saying, oh, this lady's getting lots of views and lots of likes and stuff. And then, so you got your hopes up, but then they said, well, actually, no, we're not going to monetize you because you're talking about mental health.
Yeah. And more importantly, I think because I was talking about mental illness.
Right.
You're like, oh, it's self-care, take a bath, go outside. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to not be okay. They're fine with that. But when you start talking about mental illness, especially severe mental illness, I think they freak out, because they don't understand that this is something you can and should be talking about in a way where you're informing people, where you're making people feel better about it, where you're not, you're taking the scariness away, but they don't know that. They just see you talking about this kind of thing and they're like, no. And it's like, it's quite discriminatory, really, but who you going to tell? Who are you going to talk to? There is no one, so you have to kind of try and do all these things. And that's what also it's like, if I've been shadow banned, they try to pretend like it doesn't exist. Everyone knows it does because you can see it. You can see that you're not showing up. You can see that people can't see you in their feed. It's obvious and it goes on. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a fluke or a glitch, and you report the problem and they don't get back to you. But it's like, if you were to tell me why I got shadow banned and tell me what I can do to fix it, I will do it. I will do whatever you need me to do to get unbanned. I will not post about certain things, or do my best. I will take away videos that you don't like, whatever, as long as I can get out of this and get back to doing what I wanted to do. but they won't tell you what's wrong. They're like a girlfriend that's just constantly giving you the silent treatment and being pouty and being rude and everything. And you're like, what's your deal? What's wrong? Are you okay? And they go, no, I'm fine. It's like, well, no, clearly you're not fine. Tell me what's wrong. And they're just like, well, if you knew, you knew, like, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, stop being that way. Tell me what I need to do. Like, tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what I need to do. And they just won't. They just permanently give you the silent treatment.
Be better.
So, exactly. No, they're not. It's not even like that, because they're not even talking to you. They're like, oh, by the way, if you see one of these accounts, like, you can just stay away from it. You can filter out this dirtiness. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, if I am the dirtiness, tell me, but they're like, oh, well, no, forget you. You're officially a blacklisted account.
But now you're on TikTok, and are you finding it better?
I am getting a bit more viewership. It's hard for me to tell if I'm showing up on TikTok, because almost every single hashtag has at least 1 million people, 1 million uses, if not billions. And so it's like the second you put it up, like, you get drowned in other stuff. But I don't know what the regular amount of viewership is supposed to look like for an account my size. And I've got just under 5,000 people. I don't know what the viewership is supposed to look like. But at least I'm getting viewed. At least, there's something happening. Sometimes I only get a couple hundred. Sometimes I get like 1,000. So I have a few videos that blew up for some reason, and I got like 150,000 or like, 20,000, 50,000, whatever. So if I can make more videos like that, that'd be great. But I think that my numbers kind of match a lot of people, where they may have a couple videos that exploded, but the rest of them are kind of,
Yeah, it's weird. Like on Instagram, I'll make a reel or something, and it'll get, I only have a little over 700 followers right now, but it'll get, I don't know, 300-400 views or whatever. And then like 3 weeks later, it picks up again. And then it's like, I don't know if it gets put into the algorithm again or what, because then it'll jump up to like 2,000 views. I'm like, I have no idea what the hell's going on.
Someone's story or something, or it got put on the Explore page or whatever. Like, that's the thing. If you can get it on the Explore page, that's when it blows up. But of course, I haven't been on the Explore page in months. I haven't been on anything in months, and it sucks, because it's like the people who do see my stuff seem to really like it and seem to really feel relating to it. Like the ratio of people who like and share and comment and stuff to the views is very high. So it's not just like people don't like it, it's they do if they see it, and that's the issue. And so I've been trying to pull out of this depression, and I've actually, because Dudley, that's the golden doodle's name, because he's a big oaf, because he's so silly, because Dudley has been so helpful for me. I'm looking into getting a dog for us that can be a psychiatric service animal, so that I can take him places. And, he's kind of my little buddy and stuff, because it's like, I was, ready to just die, the other night. And, I went and, said something to Dudley, and he came in and put his big old paws up and, was like, licking and very happy and excited. And I already felt 1 million times better. It didn't fix everything, but I felt so much better. And, I spend so much time alone, because my husband works, and I don't really have anywhere to go necessarily. So I'm in the house a lot, and I'm alone and that kind of thing. And I think that really contributes to mental health issues, being isolated, not having a sense of purpose anymore. All those things kind of contribute. And so I think if I had a little dog to train and love and play with and stuff, and, and it's like, they're like, oh, well, don't get a dog if you don't, unless you have time for one. I'm like, I have all the time in the world for a dog. All the time in the world. I am not going to worry about him not having enough love,
Yeah. Are you working part-time again?
No. I got let go from that completely. Within the same conversation that I told them I had this condition, and he claimed it was for other reasons, but those reasons were weird. Like, oh, well, there's a change in management. Did the other manager say they didn't want me, or is it just an excuse to say, oh, well, we're moving on? You know what I mean? And I told, I'm not good wherever there is, but I'm filing for disability, because my cognitive faculties and my executive function are just in the toilet, and they are continuing to decline. They are not getting better. They are getting worse, as things develop and everything. And I just, things that I'm supposed to be able to do, socialization I'm supposed to be able to have, I just can't. Like, I'm talking pretty fluently right now, but it's like I'm in a space for it. It's a topic that I'm interested in. I'm not having to do certain tasks like organizational, like, being somewhere on time, going in traffic. I can't handle driving very well. Like, I have to be reminded to brush my teeth and take a shower.
Hello, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a little break, tell you about a wonderful episode from the past, episode 52 and 53. Both are with Daniela Ponticelli. Daniela is a journalist that grew up in a house with mental illness. Not only did she live with an ill parent, but her family also immigrated to Canada when she was just a child. She explains how these challenges affected her own mental health growing up and how they still affect her today. It's a wonderful story. She's a wonderful storyteller and just a great, great lady. I highly recommend listening to both of those episodes, part 1 and part 2. If you have a mentally ill someone in your life, you will very much appreciate these episodes. So that is episode 52 and 53 with Daniela Ponticelli. Back to the episode.
It's like I am not in a place where I'm fit for any kind of regular job. Even the jobs I used to do, I have skills, but I'm not hireable. Because to be honest, I mean, maybe he fired me because he got scared, but if I were him, I would have fired me a long time ago, because I am just not, seriously, I have a breakdown. I have to hear directions for something over and over and over again. Every month when we did a certain task, I had to be reminded how to do it. Like, that's not a good employee. That's not someone anyone wants to hire, and so I'm filing for it, and I got my interview and everything. And, they say I have a good case and stuff so far, but we'll be hearing from them probably in the next couple of weeks to see what's going on. And so crossing my fingers and saying the prayers and holding a lucky rabbit foot, that it all works out.
Are you playing with a fidget spinner?
Are
you playing with a fidget spinner?
I'm sorry. Yes. Is it making noise?
A little bit. That's okay. I was like,
oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm just sitting there kind of messing with it and popping it and stuff. So I've got stuff to do with my hands.
That's why my one hand is never on camera, because I twirl a pen over and over and over and over and over through the whole interview.
Yep. It's a stimming kind of thing, I guess it's referred to as. And people are like, stop fidgeting. And I'm all like, I can't. And if I did try to stop fidgeting, my mind would fidget. Which do you want?
Yeah. Fidget away.
Exactly. Well, and you too. It helps. It really does help people with ADHD kind of focus. If we've got something subconsciously we're doing with our hands, 'cause otherwise it's kind of like, that's why we bob our legs. That's why we fidget. That's why we kind of have a pencil or kind of blah, 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 holding whatever. But yeah.
Damn it. I had a question lined up, and then I talked about a fidget spinner. This happens every interview. That's the weird thing about doing the podcast and like being the way that I am. I have to I edit the podcast not because of the guest, but because of me. Because I'll just have a brain fart for 5 minutes throughout the interview and be like, oh, I forget what I was gonna say.
Well, that happens to me all the time. Or I'll be in the middle of answering your question, and then I'll be like, and it's
what was
gone.
I talking about? Yeah,
exactly. And it's gone. And I don't know what thing that's from, because it's like, you've got the executive functioning issues when you have ADHD, and the cognitive thing. You have brain fog and stuff and memory issues when you have bipolar disorder, because your episodes fry your brain. And then if you have, schizophrenia symptoms, which give you schizoaffective, that gives you a lot of cognitive issues, especially when you're in the middle of an episode of that. And so it's like, I've got all these things, and I don't like that. Like, I don't know what reason I'm completely forgetting what I said, or I'm completely just kind of sitting there and zone the hell out. You know what I mean? I don't know why. It could be any one of those issues, but that's kind of that's kind of where we're at with it, but it is a big thing. You need to stay focused and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just really hard.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. It's not a question, actually. It was just how grateful I am for the job that I have. It's part-time. I work for friends, so they're super supportive, and they kind of know my situation, and she's a trained social worker and counselor and stuff. So
That's
she
convenient.
gets a lot of it. I mean, sometimes it's frustrating for them too, and but because they're friends, we can, have a little disagreement or whatever, and then 5 minutes later we eat lunch and have a coffee, and we're good to go again. But yeah, I'm very, very lucky to have that. It took me 44 years to find a job like that, but I finally got one.
It took me about 30. So, it can be a long time. And the job I had, I was very grateful for because it was very part-time. And it was work from home, and it was something that should have been easy to do, but because of my brain issues, it kind of wasn't. And maybe it was stupid of me, but I actually helped them design a way to kind of automate a lot of the tasks and have computers do it. And I might have automated my way out of a job, which would have been crappy. Like, no, if I helped automate, then that means you don't need somebody else who didn't help you, not me. Don't get rid of me because I helped you automate stuff. Like, what the hell, But, that's kind of what happened. Never again. Always make sure you are needed, I guess, is the lesson. And that's actually what you were talking about is another thing about the shame, right? Like, you can't help that you're doing things the way you do them. But at the same time, you feel this shame because people can get frustrated with you. And that's the thing. Like, I know I frustrate people, and that breaks my heart because I can't help it. And I have this kind of shame of I frustrate people I love, and there's nothing I can do about it, And it's like, I understand if it was me, I'd be frustrated too if I was one of them. But it's like, what do? I just have to hope people around me are patient. And, most people don't have to do that. And so it's something we have to deal with. And I think that's why anxiety and depression are so comorbid with ADHD, because it kind of comes with the territory from a very young age.
And addiction.
Yes, because we need something to numb. And also we have no impulse control. And I think a lot of people with ADHD don't have a stop button. If it's there, we will deal with it. Like, if there's food in the house, we will eat it all. If there's like a treat, we will eat it all. If there is, a drug that makes us feel good, we will have it until we don't have any more. And then we'll find some way to go find some more. If we're, playing a video game, we will play it for hours and hours and hours. You know what I mean? And it's just, I don't think most people with ADHD have a lot of self-control with that, not because we're lazy or undisciplined, but just that's the nature of it. We are dopamine seekers, and we have to have it or we don't function at all. And you get dopamine from getting that rush of doing something, having something. A lot of people with ADHD have gambling issues, or they buy things, or they're addicted to spending money, because it's this rush that you need, and so.
Mm-hmm. Which is also coincides with the mania of bipolar. And
I was just going to say, that's a double thing. And I am very lucky that I am not one of those people that spends a lot of money, impulsively, like, because money's always been something hard for me to come by, and I've been the one that had to come up with a lot of my own money for a long time, and I had to be very frugal about what I did, you know what I mean? And I think so. It's like I'm always kind of nervous about spending money, or like I do a lot of research on an item I want to buy to make sure I'm getting the one that I should be for what I'm paying, and I'm getting the best price and stuff. And even when I'm manic, that's not one of my vices. I have other vices, but that's not one of them. And I'm very lucky because, I mean, when you talk about mania, especially, there is, it's not just a little spending. It's not like, oh yeah, I took myself out for a steak and it cost $60. It's like, no, I spent our entire rent on, this, that, or the other. Or I refinanced the house and took that money and sunk it into a business that I think is going to work. That's not, or I gambled it away, or I went on this shopping spree every day, and that kind of thing. And that's, that kind of spending. And that's really, really one of the things that people regret when they come down the most, because that's something that will stay with you when you're done being manic big time. And it is very hard. And it's not something that their partner is going to be very happy about, or their kids or whatever. It can ruin a marriage. It can ruin a family. And that's why, a lot of bipolar people are worried about being single as well, because it can happen, whether it's because, you got extremely hypersexual and you ended up, cheating with someone who wasn't even worth it, and that's not something you do because you love your partner. But when you're manic, it is what it is. Like you have all of this gas in your car, and your car has gone from being a family car to being a sports car. And you have to use it. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to do this, and there's just a lot of ways that you can ruin stuff. I have a tendency to run away. Like, that's a manic thing, to just leave and disappear and, go whatever. And then, everybody worries about me and everything. And, but I was just like, I got to get the hell out of here, because I'm an adventurous person. So when I'm manic, I get ridiculous with it, and stuff. And I also, not to be TMI, but I get very hypersexual, and that's hard to control. Like, I'll spend hours being, too busy to do anything, you know what I mean? Like, all day, and I can't do anything about it, and it's uncontrollable in a lot of ways. You're either sitting there squirming and uncomfortable, or you're busy, you know what I mean? And it's like and I may have said this in the last interview, but it's like having a bunch of mosquito bites, and you have to scratch, but then that just makes it more itchy afterward. And it's hard, and it's hard because it feels so amazing in every way to be manic for such a long time, assuming it's euphoric mania. And, and it's so bright and so colorful and so confident that when you're not manic, even if you're stable, stability is dull. Stability is dark. Stability is a letdown, let alone depression. But it's like you spend all your time feeling not good, that when you finally feel good, it's really hard to stop,
Yeah. And then you can actually have both at the same time too, can't you? You can be manic and depressed at the same time. There's a name for that. I forget what it's.
It's either a mixed episode or dysphoric mania, whichever you want to use. But yeah, that can look like, oh, I'm manic for a day, and then I'm very depressed the next day, and then I'm very manic the next day. Or it can look like depression on cocaine, which is really not fun. That's happened before as well, for me, and that was just not fun. And another thing, when you get manic, regardless of what kind, you can get very, very angry very quickly for not a logical reason. You can be very irritable. You can be nasty to people that you love, not really caring, that you were, because it's just, you're not leading your brain. Some little gremlin in the back of your head is it's like a ratatouille situation, except you're not cooking, you're destroying yourself. It's like a ridiculous, crazy ratatouille under your hat, and it's very difficult.
I'd like to see that movie.
Oh yeah. Bipolar ratatouille.
The rat is bipolar.
The rat's bipolar, and he doesn't take his meds, and he crawls up under your hat and makes you do stuff. That'd be funny. I'd see it. I'd watch it. I would also like to watch an Inside Out movie, Pixar's Inside Out, for someone who's bipolar. And I'd like to watch like two of them look like they're on steroids, and like it's just they're kicking the ass of like, all the littler emotions and stuff.
Yeah, but Instagram wouldn't let you promote it.
No, they would not. They would not. And that's what sucks. And I've come to a point, because the guy who's the CEO of Instagram, his name is Adam Mosseri. And, I follow him now, and he posts Ask Me Anythings like frequently. And so every time he does, I ask him about the situation, like, please tell me what I can do so that I can start showing up, or please, destigmatize talking about mental health. Please make it okay. Please this, please that. And I have no idea if he sees it at all, but, I'm hoping at some point maybe he'll see it and want to say something. I don't know. Like, I've tracked down, marketing people for Instagram, like on LinkedIn, and sent them messages. Like, I've tried everything that I can. I've tried to reach everyone, but there's just no reaching anyone.
No one's ever responded, or... Oh, you're froze for a sec.
Oh.
No, you're good now.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay. You blocked up a little bit, but is that you there?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
That's like those. You remember those phone voicemails? It was like, "Hey, how you doing?"
I used to do that all the
Good.
time.
I'm just kidding. It's a voicemail. And
Another one I used to do would be so you'd phone and the answering machine would pick up, but you don't know that. It'd be like, "Hello, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak up. I can't hear you. Hello, are you still there? Hello?" And then I'd be like, just kidding.
Voicemail. But you probably missed out on a lot of voicemails, so they're like, "We'll call you back." Let me try calling again.
Yeah, just as well. I have talking on phone anxiety.
I do too. I can't stand it, and I think it's because I have to be on my toes. I have to listen to someone without watching them, which is hard. Because you don't have, like, at least when I'm talking to you, I can kind of focus and I know that you're watching me back, and there's a little more of that. But it's like when you're just sitting and listening, everything's distracting, and it's like you have to come up with something to say, like, now.
It's like having someone, like, I'm not a big fan of pop-ins either, where someone just comes in to my house, knocks on the door. "Hey, I was just walking by. What you guys doing?" It's like, what the fuck are you doing? I need a good week's I need a week's advance notice, And so it's the same thing with the phone. And I gotta tell you, there's been a phone number call me in the last 3 days, and it's a local number, so I'm in a real small town. I have no idea who it is though, and I refuse to answer, and they refuse to leave a message. So
it's probably a spam call. Half of all calls these days, or something ridiculous like that, are apparently spam calls. Now, and I've had on my app I had to have an app on my phone put in that automatically screens, and like they'll send junk calls into this junk folder and straight to voicemail. They won't even ring, they won't even show up, which is good. And there's a lot of them that I get during the day, and it sucks. Or like sometimes if I'm feeling like I've got that anger, you know what I mean, and someone does call, I'll pick up. And then I'll make it their problem. You know what I mean? like, "Oh yeah, we've called you about your student loan." "Oh, you have you?" Yeah. We can relieve it for you. We've got you on record. I'm like, "Do you? That's interesting, because I don't have one." I don't have a student loan. I didn't go to school. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so they're like, "Oh, well, blah, blah." I'm like, no. Don't you hang up. You make sure you blah, 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 blah. And I'm a total Karen, and I don't even care, because it's like, you weren't supposed to call me anyway. And I've taken it, like, I will admit, like, way too overboard. Back on the subject of this little dog that I want to get, I want to actually register it as a psychiatric service animal. One, because I actually need one. And two, because I want to be able to take him with me places, because I would need him to be with me. I wouldn't suddenly not have symptoms just because I'm somewhere, And my husband lives overseas, and doesn't live overseas. He's from the UK, and we go back and visit and stuff. And he kept being like, "Well, what will we do, with the dog if we're gone for 2 weeks? What if your mom moves? We can't leave him with him, and we'd have to put him in a kennel, and I hate that, and it's expensive and stuff." And it's like, well, I'd like to take him with me. I'd like to be able to have him at my feet in the cabin, and be able to have him, with me also in case I need him, but it requires a lot of work. But again, I'm home all day. I have time for this animal. It's like, what am I doing right now? Scrolling through videos? Like, that's stupid. Like, I have time to talk to friends. I have time to make some content, but it's like the rest of it's just me sitting around feeling bad, and so it's like, I'd have to go outside with him. I would have to train him to be not naughty. And then I have to train him to do these things, and that will take time, and it will take work. And he's about 2.5 hours away right now, the one I'm looking at. He's Maltese and Shih Tzu.
A malt shit.
I'm going to call him that. Yeah. I'm going to call him that as a breed now.
Or shit malt.
Shit tease.
Shit tease.
Shitties. And I have, like, it's hard because he's only a few months old, but I'm hoping he has a temperament for it, because that's the thing with a service dog. Like, they have to have a certain temperament. They can't just be your rambunctious little, like, la, 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 dog that sniffs and gets distracted. Like, there's a reason when you see a service dog, they're focused, they're sitting, they're quiet, they're not looking around, they're not sniffing around, and that kind of thing. And I have to make sure that he's smart enough to do that. You know what I mean? My one fear is, this lady rescued him as a little tiny puppy from a puppy mill. And I'm a little bit wary about puppy mills. I'm glad that he got rescued, but, and I'm going to need her to give me some kind of health records, some kind of, health guarantee. If I bring him home and he drops in, has a seizure and stuff like that. Like, I need to be like, yo, you didn't tell me. Like, I either want my money back or I have to bring the dog back, because that's not why I needed a dog. And it's extremely expensive, to take care of a dog with special needs. I explained to her why I'm looking for a dog. And she's like, well, he's very cuddly. He's very kind of mellow and things like that. And I know as he gets older, he'd probably get a little more energetic. But if I go there, it's about 2.5 hours. I'm going to go there. I'm going to see if he likes me and if he, got a temperament for that kind of thing. And if he does, he's coming home.
What do you have to do to register it as a
service dog?
Yeah.
He has to do at least one thing for you that is of service, if you're having panic attacks, his PTSD, he has to be able to know to come and nudge you out of it, or, he has to bring you your medicine, or the alarm goes off and he has to kind of drag you until you go to bed, if you have bipolar disorder or whatever, or if you're finding yourself in this steaming, overwhelmed rage, like he comes and barks and loves you, whatever, something like that.
If you're masturbating too much.
Yeah. He starts barking in the other room and you're like, okay, fine. Let's go for a walk, But, and he has to have a certain temperament. Like I said, he can't be easily distracted. And you have to train him for this, but he can't be easily distracted. He can't be sniffing around and jumping up on people. He has to, not defecate everywhere, without you actually taking him and commanding him to do that. And he has to not be barking and yapping and stuff like that. And he has to be an extremely good boy, basically.
Mm-hmm. So does someone test him like that and then they stamp him certified?
They kind of take a look at him, I believe, and make sure that he has that kind of qualification. And if he does, he can get certified, and he doesn't have to wear that little vest, but it probably helps. And, some places will require seeing an ID for him because people have been abusing the whole comfort animal thing, But, other than that, they're not allowed to ask you what he does. I think some places are, but most places are not. They're not allowed to ask you why you have him. They just need to see that he is a legitimate service dog, and, he can even fly in a plane with you. He could go on a ride with you at an amusement park, probably not a roller coaster, but, a ride, they'd have to let him on. He can go into a restaurant. They cannot charge you pet rent for him in apartments, cause you have to have him. And I'm looking into all the details, but basically, I would be glad I was getting him this little, cause he doesn't have any baggage yet that might stifle his desire to, play and learn and things like that, but I gotta make sure he's healthy because the puppy mill thing scares me. You know what I mean? Like I'm glad that he got out of there, but it's not a good situation. They may have health problems. They may have, temperament problems or inbred or something. So I gotta go up there and take a good look at him myself.
I talked to a guy. He was a stand-up comedian, maybe 15 episodes ago or something, Jeremy Hotz, and he has a little emotional support dog, and it's certified. I never asked how he certified it. I should have asked him, I guess, but he'll even take him up on stage with him and stuff. Like, he's a stand-up comedian, and he'll take him on tour, and he's on the plane, and he encourages people in the audience to bring their dogs and stuff, and it's
that's really
cool.
Good. Yeah, that's really good. And that's why, they have to be able to sit at your side or whatever and be quiet and be calm and blah, blah, and all that. And like I said, I think even for the sake of some structure in my life and some routine or whatever, I can't not take him to go to the bathroom. I gotta go out there and take him. I've gotta, make sure that he's brushed. I've gotta make sure he's clean. I've gotta make sure that he has energy, that he's not being left alone, that he's played with, things like that. And that's good for any mental health condition, especially ADHD. Like, you have to feed him. you have to do all these things and make sure that if he goes to the, pay attention to him. And if he seems sick, take him to the doctor, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that would be a good thing for me. It would be hard at times when I'm really, like, oh God, I'm not having a good day with this, but I'd have to do it. I'd have to figure it out. Or, maybe ask my husband, like, hey, can you please just take him out? But, he'd be my responsibility, and I'm okay with that, And I've been very real, I know he's going to probably have accidents in the house when he's this little. I know he's going to try and chew on stuff. That's just what puppies do. I know he's going to, be, crying at night a lot and all that, but, that doesn't last forever usually. So.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
We kennel trained our dogs, and it was really nice.
That's
helped
good.
a lot.
Well, you've got to potty train them, of course, as well. Did
Yeah.
you know you can train a dog to use a toilet?
I've heard that, and I've
Like
seen
an actual
videos.
toilet.
But
I have no idea if I could do that, but that's amazing. Very convenient because if it's a cold day and it's snowing outside and your dog doesn't want to freeze his paws off while he's trying to take a dump, that might be better, and you wouldn't have to necessarily go outside, for that. But I don't know if I could pull that off, especially if he's tiny. I wouldn't want him to fall in, But he's very small right now. He's 3 months old. He weighs about 3 pounds. And he's very, very little. But you look at him and you're like, oh my God. He's so cute. And I mean, I was also considering getting a dog from a breeder just because their temperament is more guaranteed. And, I've always rescued before, but their temperament's guaranteed. All of their pedigree is known. They know exactly who the parents are, and, they have all the shots, all the guarantees, all this, that, and the other. Have you seen how much it costs to get a dog from a breeder? Any kind of dog?
Mm-hmm.
These dogs are being sold for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000.
Yep.
For these dogs. And it's I'm just oh my God. Even Dudley, my mom, she's always rescued, but she saw this dog in a pet shop and they were basically starving him to keep him as little as possible. And he was having to stand in his own pee and everything like that. My mom's I've been watching this dog. No one's bought this dog and he's 6 months old. And they're going to start getting really weird with him and stuff. And so he was $2,000, but they gave him to her for $900. I have no idea where she's pulling $900 from, but she is. I mean, it's not he's not worth it. He's fabulous. But also it's these places want so much money for these dogs. And it's even a shelter. I've seen shelter puppies where they want $400, $500 for this. The one I'm going to get, they want $475 for him because he's a puppy. But it's and it's I get it. You need that for the money to make sure you can feed all these dogs and you can take them all to the vet if they need it. It's expensive. So, I get it, but at the same time, that is so much money for a dog,
We just got a new dog in May. She's 7 years old, and she was $400 at 7 years old.
7?
Because she's a purebred Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. And we tried to get the backstory out of the owner, but she was very elusive. But she had big saggy nipples and stuff, so I think they bred the living shit out of her to the point that she couldn't breed anymore, and they
were done.
They were done with her. So
yeah, well, and that's the problem with a lot of puppy mills, for example. They will not take good care of their dogs. They will not be good to their dogs. They will not treat their puppies with the love and socialization they should. They leave them in cages. So they get antisocial and they get kennel cough and all this other BS. And, they're bred to, there's a lot of interbreeding. So they may have problems. That's the only problem with the pure breed is there has to be a lot of the same bloodline in order to get that dog to be that way. So a lot of pure breeds have a lot of health problems. But that's the thing about golden doodles that's nice because it takes 2 breeds to make a golden doodle.
Thank you so much, Hailey. As always, it's just a pleasure to speak with you. And a little update about Hailey. she has got herself a dog, and it is the dog she was talking about, a little Maltese. His name's Oliver, and he's cute as hell, and he has his own Instagram account. I suggest you follow him. It's oliver.the_Maltese. Maltese is spelled Maltese. And if you want to follow Hailey, it's mind.over.mood. And you can follow her on Instagram and on TikTok with this exact same handle. And just support her and follow her and love her content, because her content is really, really, really great. That's the whole reason why I reached out to her for episode 32 all those months ago. While you're doing that, please follow me on any of my Bunny Hug and Mental Health podcast accounts on TikTok, Instagram, etc. And please leave a message, leave a question, leave a concern, and please, I noticed that the reviews and the ratings have slowed down, and I'm telling you, for someone that doesn't get paid and would like to start making some money on doing the podcast, because it takes me several hours a week, ratings and reviews are massive. They help podcasters of all types, so not just mine, any podcast you listen to, please rate and review. It really helps. And really quick, don't forget, next week I'm speaking with Louise Barnett, and she is in recovery and also an addictions coach, and we're going to hear her story and how she has lived her life up to this point. Okay, I only got one more thing to say, and that is, please remember to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.